You know, again, my name is Brian Shields, and my co-founder, Marcus Mayo, who we'll meet in a few minutes, we've actually known each other for going on 10 years now. And you know, when you think about it, that's actually a really long time, at least in under 30 land. But in that time, we've actually spent a lot of time developing and supporting entrepreneurs of all shapes and sizes through different means. And even going through corporate finance, going through consulting, even working in big corporations, we realized, man, look, it is time to reclaim our souls and contribute to this entrepreneurial community. And we decided to build something that was enduring and lasting and could have an impact on people all across the country. And so we realized that something is IncubateNYC. Now, what is IncubateNYC? I mean, you could say, hey, is IncubateNYC an incubator? Well, it's actually something more than that. It's become a movement. And it's become a movement to bring the support that people need to create businesses to support their families. Like myself and my new fiance's family that's sitting here up front. So basically, you don't pay my bills. But it's also about, you know, giving people the knowledge and access to be able to change the world. I think everybody has a dream, and they want to see that dream grow and blossom. And without that support and access, you can't do that. I think this is also a movement about the people, about giving the people in this room and in this city the opportunity to really capture a piece of the modern American dream. It's not about going to work in a factory and getting, you know, the white picket fence and 2 dogs. Actually, 2 kids and a dog. It's about, like I said, it's the modern American dream, right? I don't know what we're doing. But it's really about, you know, being able to create for yourself, being free to create whatever support you need in the way you see fit, and to be able to solve problems that you see in the world with the tools that you have. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to organize this community and bring everyone together with their great ideas so that we can actually give those resources and that ability to other people. Now, we recognize we don't know everything, and we've said that from the start. Like I said, I didn't even know I was wearing the same suit that I was going to show you the video in, right? But we know that you all know more than we do. And we need your help. This is the opportunity for you to be our board of advisors. You all are the ones with the entrepreneurial experience. You know? You all are the ones that have seen what works and what doesn't in communities in this city, in this country, and even internationally. You all are the ones that can help us answer the hard questions that we can't figure out alone. And we're hoping that you can spend a little bit of time with us today to do that. So again, I'd like to say thank you, because at the end of this conversation and the end of this day, you all will have incubated us, and you will help us accelerate the growth of this movement and to really make an impact on entrepreneurship in this city, which is the goal I think everybody wants to see happen. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking this time, and give us all the ideas you have, because we will take them and we will run hard. We're smart, we're honest, and we are willing to bust our butts working for you all. So please give us the ideas so we can take off running. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce you to Marcus Mayo, who's my co-founder. He's got probably the flyest jacket in the room. And he's going to start a conversation with some of our honored panelists. And the goal of that conversation is going to be to facilitate a little bit about what people have seen here in the city, as well as internationally, that could work. And from that, we hope that stimulates ideas and thoughts from you. And we'll try to collect some of those thoughts, a little formally and informally over drinks. So sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation, and put your thinking caps on, okay? All right.
Good afternoon, Marcus Mayo, co-founder of IncubateNYC. So when we thought about the event during Internet Week, we said it'd be cool to do it in a space that's representative of Harlem, as well as a place that not a lot of people know about in Harlem. And we heard about the Maison, and we were like, yo, it'd be really cool to do a video and also bring people up to do a panel, similar to like the actors in the Screen Guild, where they show the video and then they have the actors. But we're going to have a different perspective, because I think we did a very good job of getting the perspective of the people in the video. Now it's a chance to get the perspective of other people who have built communities, as well as are part of the community when it comes to building the new tech community with here in Harlem. So I'm going to have all the panelists come up. Now I'm going to introduce them quickly. So, come on. Yep. So to my immediate right, we have Seema Shaw. Seema is the Manager of Strategic Partnership at NYC Digital, the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. She is currently managing the redesign, rebrand, and relaunch of the national nonprofit website, as well as the social media and blogging channels. NYC Digital has the goal of improving communications with residents and businesses, but enhancing the city's transparency and working closely with digital media. Prior to her current role at NYC Digital, she was a communications specialist for SECO, a national nonprofit that focuses on advancing economic opportunity for people, businesses, and communities. Seema has a master's in urban policy from the New School for Management and Urban Policy and is graduate partner with a degree in political science. Let's welcome Seema. Next to Seema, we have Carolyn Strauska. Carolyn is currently Director of Business Development for Digital Media Group at Sesame Street, which is super awesome. Caroline is a former investment banker for Solomon Smith Barney, where she executed media and consumer product deals such as Leapfrog IP and Craft IPO. She is the co-founder of IntelliToys, a digital media toys business. Caroline is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania with the MBA from Wharton, and she currently resides here in Harlem. Let's give her a round of applause. The next person on our panel is Alejandro Rosa. This is really cool. He comes all the way from Chile. He's the co-founder of Chile's restaurant iPhone app and the most downloaded app in the country, which is amazing. And he participated in Startup Chile and is currently working here in New York City to build that footprint, the footprint of the business that he built down in Chile. So he has great experience in understanding how other countries are thinking about building the economic ecosystem around technology. Let's give him a round of applause. We also have Bruce Lincoln. He has been involved in cutting-edge technology product development and technology commercialization since the late 80s, when as the first Ford Fellow in Educational Technology, he was one of the early CD-ROM content developers for the Apple Macintosh computer. What's a CD-ROM? I read that, I was like, CD-ROM? Wow, we've come a long way, right? I'm reading this off of a phone, it's crazy. In 1995, after successfully developing the first commercial website for America's Cup and producing the first project to put high-speed internet and World Wide Web in New York's public schools. Bruce is the affiliate scholar at Columbia Institute for Teleinformation and Graduate School of Business, and from May 2008 until June 2011, he was the entrepreneur in residence at the Center's Technology Innovation Community Engagement, CTICE. He worked for the Food Foundation School of Engineering and has been very involved here in the Harlem community. Let's give him a round of applause. And our final panelist is Chris Miles. Chris is the editor of Policy Mike, one of the startups that was featured in the video. It is a Harlem-based startup. He has worked for media outlets including the Associated Press and Stars and Stripes. He has covered issues including the Iraq War, the United Nations, and 2008-2012 elections. He also worked with the William J. Clinton Foundation, the United Nations, and the Kentucky State Legislature. He holds a master's degree in political science and international relations from the University of Louisville and a BA in journalism and political science from the University of Kentucky. Let's give him a round of applause. So we have a great panel today, and to kick off the first question, I'm going to pose it to Bruce, who's worked for a long time here in the Harlem community, and just give your thoughts on what you've seen develop from, call it the 80s to now, with technology here in the Harlem community.
Well, actually, from 80s to now, what you actually seen in the last, I think, 4 years, an acceleration in that activity. I mean, a thumbnail of the technology development was Harlem has always been looked at as a place to test the need for the technologies for underserved kids for various reasons. In the 80s, there was an emphasis on STEM learning and also ensuring that children in underserved schools had access to computers. That was one of the projects that I worked on with Apple at the time, so I'm very interested in that because they wanted to look at the urban market. with the internet, what you've seen is the schools in Harlem were some of the first ones that had access to the internet, but what you didn't see take hold here was the startup activity that you saw happen in Silicon Alley. But once again, what you now see in the last 4 years is this acceleration of both focus on STEM, because we need to get the young people involved in technology, especially since they're the fastest adopters of smartphones, like what Marcus is using to read our bios, but also the need to create tech startup activities. So it's an interesting convergence that I think we're now at the cusp of.
Awesome. And for the group, let's talk a little bit about what you see is necessary to truly build a digital community or a digital neighborhood, not just in New York, but maybe even across the world.
Hi everyone, thank you so much. I just wanted to thank Jenna and Marcus and Ryan for the invitation to sit on the panel today. I'm so excited to be here. Going back to your question about what's needed, and I think that this has been true across all of the tech and digital, across all of the tech digital hubs in the city, is that there's definitely been a need for leadership. If you think about Roosevelt Island, I'm sure you've all heard that Cornell University won a proposal to build a tech and engineering state-of-the-art campus on Roosevelt Island, which is going to happen within the next 10 years, but they're going to start construction in 5 years. And there was a man by the name of Fred Wilson that was really the proponent of that campus, and he actually, manages one of the most successful venture capital firms here in New York City. And I think what makes the city very excited to be here today is because someone has stepped on this, this sort of lonely stage and taken the leadership for Harlem, and that's you guys. And it's, a real testament to how strong the community is and how thirsty it is for something like this. And I think the city is supporting that. We released about 6 months ago a request to have a partner manage an incubator that's focused exclusively on the Harlem community. And we're in the process, and I know you guys are really involved in that. And the city's ready to put its sort of money where its mouth is, and wants to make sure that this community succeeds like all of the other tech hubs throughout New York City.
Thanks for inviting me. It's awesome to be here. Sesame has been in New York for 43 years almost, and in my role at Sesame, I get to work with a bunch of entrepreneurs in the tech space. So I work with established companies like Apple and Microsoft, but then also a lot of app developers, and I travel all over the country, especially to California, and I think a lot about how what's going on in California and what's going on in some places in Brooklyn, how it could happen here in Harlem. I'm very passionate about Harlem. I live in Harlem. I've been living here for a long time, and you just see that potential in everywhere here. And I was just in Brooklyn this morning, and I came into Harlem like, Harlem's, we're ready. And so I was thinking about, what we need here, and even though I work at Sesame, I'm actually working on another company as well, actually with my sister who's in the audience, and we're working out of my living room, so I actually do have a startup in Harlem as well. But the two things that I'm thinking a lot about is space, and I'm also thinking about people, so building a team, and so finding the right people to maybe build that e-commerce platform on open source, like where can I find the right developers here in Harlem that could maybe help me to build what I need to build. And then also space. One of the reasons I moved here to Harlem to live here is because it's affordable, and I created my own Zen space. So how do I create that in, with my business as well? So looking at that, and I think Harlem is right for that.
Hi guys. I was talking to Brian the other day, and I told him that I was incubated in Startup Chile, which is an 11-hour flight from New York, so you guys know. It's that little country that's very far away, and it's only got 15 million people, but there's a lot going on there. And he was like, yeah, we really want to create an incubator in Harlem, because Harlem isn't as well represented as all the other neighborhoods. It's not the Flatiron, it's not Union Square. And I was like, yeah, but I come from a place that's so far away, Most people don't even speak English. There's no venture capital. I can't take the subway to Wall Street or anything. So I was like, yeah, I mean, it must be harder. And what they did in Startup Chile is something amazing. They created an incubator for companies that are not Chilean. So they want Americans, Israelis, Europeans, Australians, Africans, and whatever kind of people that are non-Chilean to go to Chile to start their business. And it's such a crazy concept, and it's worked. So, no, it's amazing. And what they do is they give you $40,000 of equity-free money, and it means that you don't have to give it back. So it's just like, it's $40,000, so you can start your business. And I spent it in a car, and no, I'm kidding, but yeah, so it's $40,000 of equity-free money, and they give you free office space. So it's just amazing, and that's like nothing compared to all the people you meet from all over the world, and that happened in Chile. You know, at the end of the world, you have more than 600 entrepreneurs from every single country that I can think of that are living there for 6 months starting their businesses. So I said, dude, Harlem is like so much easier, so much easier to do than Chile, and it's worked there. So that's why I wanted to come here to give my experience, because I just graduated from the program. I had an amazing, amazing experience. Met so many nice people, and I think that Harlem is on the eve. There's a huge opportunity to do something great here. The city as a whole, New York, is gathering so much attention from the venture community. Nobody's talking about Silicon Valley anymore. I mean, things are coming here to New York, and there's no reason why Harlem can't be an next, just one more within the great city that New York is, as a tech hub. So I see the future like really well for Harlem.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris, can you speak a little bit to, you've been here in Harlem for about a year or so. You've been working in the community. Can you just talk a little bit about your experience being a startup up in Harlem?
Absolutely. So number one, thank you guys so much for having me here. It's really cool. Before I jump into that, I guess the one thing that I want to touch on is how great Harlem is. And when I say that, I think it touched, or the video touched on it a little bit. As a tech company, we focus on technology, we focus on politics, and we focus on journalism. And there's a lot of technology startups, a lot of journalism startups, a lot of political startups out there, so what makes us different? And I think it's the fact that we're in Harlem. I really think that pays a lot of dividends. And what do I mean about that? We start talking about our company, and nobody wants to hear, we're a startup company in Dumbo. If you tell that to an investor who's out in California, or to an investor out in Texas, they'll think you're talking about a Disney movie. So Dumbo, Chelsea, nobody wants to talk about Chelsea. But when we say we're a tech company up in Harlem, that's really cool for people, and people really start latching onto that. And as soon as you say Harlem, you've automatically opened up the conversation for another 20 minutes to talk about your company. So that's number one, the best thing. Number two, the kind of going along with that, a lot of people kind of want to know what Harlem is. So initially, when we were raising money, we would have investor meetings, and we would be apprehensive. We all, like 4 of us, live in a brownstone right across the street here, so we'd be apprehensive about bringing these investors into our house and kind of showing them our living room, and then kind of making a couple $1,000 deal there. But the investors, they never wanted to meet in Chelsea or Midtown or any of the places that we recommended. They always wanted to come up here to Harlem. And they always wanted to see the sights. They wanted to go eat at Red Rooster. They wanted to go to Olive Market and get a sandwich. They really, they like the idea of a tech company in Harlem. That's cool to them. And I think that in itself also played dividends. But at the same time, Harlem is small. It's not Midtown. It's not Dumbo. There's a lot of things missing here. The one thing that we really need in Harlem, that our company really needs in Harlem, is more coffee shops. And I say that because, you know, we love to walk and talk and go to meetings. We love to take people out and kind of, you know, hammer out deals and figure out, you know, what we're going to do. It's hard for us to do that in our living room. You know, we work out of our own apartment. We need more restaurants. We need more places to go. You know, for us, it's been a little bit, you know, kind of tough to do that. So, you know, as I think the video mentioned, business creates business. And as more people, you know, are invited to come to Harlem to create their business, I think that will spawn more business. But, you know, you need to have that initial spark, and you need to get more people here no matter what the business is. It doesn't need to be just tech. Tech runs off coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. And so, you know, we just don't need tech companies in Harlem. We need all kinds of companies in Harlem. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from all of this.
Absolutely. I think you made a very good point, Chris, and I think it's a perfect segue. So we do a lot of like pumping up like Harlem's great, yeah, great culture. But let's actually talk about what's actually missing to truly make this a tech community, such as Flatiron or Dumbo,
Yeah.
or Soho.
You know, I don't know what it is. We always have internet problems in Harlem. Our internet blacks out maybe, you know, 2 or 3 times a week, which sucks for us because, you know, we're having a massive traffic day. We're getting a lot of people on the site we're trying to cultivate, the site we're trying to build out the site, and all of a sudden the internet goes out. The infrastructure has to keep building in Harlem. It has to be modern. It has to be, you know, up to date. You know, that doesn't happen in Midtown. That doesn't happen in Dumbo. You know, like I said, we need more restaurants in Harlem. We need more green space in Harlem. You know, if I come to work at 7 and, you know, I'm hammering away for 12 hours, I want to go outside. I want to go to the park. I want to go to play basketball. You know, I want to go walk around the streets. I want to see something, you know, a little different than my computer screen. So it's just a range of things that Harlem needs to do. You know, it needs to you know, kind of build out the infrastructure, but also, you know, be kind of a welcoming spot for a lot of different types of people. And, you know, I think it kind of builds on itself. I think the video kind of made it clear. There's been a lot of new supermarkets. There's been a lot of new restaurants. There's been a lot of new coffee shops that have opened up. And I think, you know, Harlem needs to keep doing that. I think we're on the right track, and as we continue to build from there, you know, we're going to be able to build our own company, and I think other companies will be able to do the same.
Bruce, do you have any thoughts as well?
In terms of the things that need to happen in Harlem that would foster, you know, this tech growth?
Yes.
Well, I think it's not something that has to do with Harlem. I think it has to do with how Harlem is perceived, because historically one of the issues is that African American entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in color and technology have not had access to venture capital. And all of the statistics show that. So where 95% of the venture capital financing goes to basically white males, to African American males, or African Americans period, then equals about 1%. So this is a major issue that's under discussion now, both in Congress and at the FCC, at the Joint Center, especially now as we look at broadband penetration in these communities. So you have sort of a twofold set of problems to solve. One, which goes back to even the development of Silicon Valley back in the day. How do we get more kids into technology? And that's making sure they get very sound STEM-based educations in the schools, but then how does it turn into their being able to work in the technology industry? So that's one thing that's being looked at. The other issue is, now that you're starting to have increasingly more entrepreneurs of color want to develop apps, want to move into this tech space, where is that venture capital financing? So that's also been a historical problem. And then rounding that out, you have the issue of the broadband digital divide, where basically in Harlem we don't have the level of connectivity that we need to support the kind of technological growth. And Susan Crawford just spoke about that. She's actually one of our advisors at the Columbia Institute for Teleinformation, and she was part of the transition team for Obama. At this point here in the city of New York, and a lot of cities, what we're finding is that there is a duopoly. But whereas in some respects that's been suppressed by Verizon, it's actually been increased by Time Warner Cable, so that one of our issues is not having enough bandwidth because we basically have to go through the cable company. So one of the big issues that I've been working on historically to attempt to solve with a number of partners here in Harlem is that idea of ubiquitous wireless broadband. Why don't we have a wireless network that is across the cultural corridor of 125th Street? Why is it we don't have more places where people can get access to low-cost broadband? There are 100 million people who don't have access to broadband. That's impinging upon not only our ability to tie into essential services, but to create tech startups. So, you know, we've got to really solve those problems. We have to create an equitable means whereby people can gain access to the technology just for the tech startup side. We also need to increase social ventures that look at how do we solve some of the long-standing inequities in Harlem. So we need the tech startup folks to now think as well as social ventures, not simply, you know, the creation of apps. So I think that's the idea of a holistic ecosystem that can address as a collective and advocate on behalf of these things that could actually catapult Harlem into the 21st century as a type of minds-based center, you know, supporting not only tech startups, but technological equity.
That you made a very good point, which I wanted to talk about. Well, as I see it, I didn't know the problems of Harlem because this is my first time in Harlem, but I'm going to talk about it in a more macro way. The things that are necessary to create a hub are mainly three. It's investors on one end, you need human capital on the other end, and you need wait, what was it? You need human capital, you need investors, and you need government on the other side. So if you get the government to give maybe tax breaks, maybe incentives, or just policies to make things easier in Harlem, that's great. If you have human capital, you have universities, you have workshops, you have things, that's also great. But you also need investors, you know, to get the money flowing through the system. And me, I'm a Latino, I face the same problem that you guys face, that there's not enough VC dollars flowing into our pockets because it's very hard for a Latin company, for a black company to get funding. And it's true, I mean, 95% goes to white American males. And so that's a problem. And the way I see it is that you need more wealthy, important businessmen that are from the African American community investing in you guys, because if you think about important, prominent black businessmen, you immediately start thinking of the entertainment industry, the sports industry, but why aren't there any important African American VCs? And that's what you need to create a hub here in Harlem. Somebody that's from the neighborhood, that made it big, and he wants to give his money back and invest in the neighborhood so it can keep growing just like he grew. So that's how I see it. And I think that it starts from within the community. It starts from proposing a plan of action that's real, that has a return on investment, and that you can say, okay, so instead of financing the production of another artist, which there are plenty, what about this startup? We're going to hire 30 more people with the startup here in Harlem. So it's just a way to diversify all the money from the African American community. So we have to show them that window of opportunity that wasn't there before.
That's absolutely right. And final question to the panel before I open it up to the audience is around what can we do now? You know, as citizens that are interested in tech, who want to make a difference and who want to help build the neighborhood. What are things that we can do now, recognizing that there is a government aspect to it, but what can we do, starting like today or tomorrow?
I was thinking, actually, and that kind of goes to the other question as well, is that what you need to give people too is a set of tools. Like, so you may have a lot of great people out there that have a lot of awesome ideas, but do people know how to write a business plan, and do people know how to actually write, create a 3-year financial plan or create a venture deck? And these are things that, we learn in business school, and there's templates for this stuff, and it's still very difficult to do. Even if you have an MBA, it's still very difficult to do. But in order to show these investors your idea, frankly, it comes down to dollars as well. So you have to actually be able to plan this stuff out. So there might be ideas out there, but a lot of folks don't have the tools that are necessary. So if there was a way, tomorrow, to actually create a community of business people, of people who have maybe done it before, coming from you know, coming from Silicon Alley or coming from Alpha, California, or even entrepreneurs who are already here or here in New York, who maybe there would be some sort of, it could be some sort of incentive for them to actually teach what they know to people on the ground who, and then actually help them build business plans and, you know, in a way like an incubator, but less, I don't know, more educational, less kind of like, you know, it's, you know, there's a selling in of an idea, but then there's actually creating the groundwork for being able to get money around that. So I feel like those tools are necessary here. So I know a space where people can learn how to do that.
Sure, absolutely.
Great, thanks. So I think this is a great question. What can you do now? And I think that what it really comes down to is not being afraid to tell your idea to other people and going out there and talking about it like it's the most important idea, the best idea that the world has ever come up with, and sharing it and getting feedback and incorporating that feedback immediately. And I think a lot of times tech entrepreneurs, and I've never started a company and I can't speak to that, but I think that there's a lot of desire to keep your idea private and to hold on to what what you're building and what you're doing and how you're going to do it. And no one is saying to unveil the business plan to every single person you meet, but I think it's really the reason New York City is better than any other city to start a company is because we are so honest with each other. Every day, in coffee shops, when you go to restaurants, when you're waiting online, anywhere at the gym, everyone wants to tell you their opinion on stuff. And that's actually a huge asset that we have that other cities don't have, because we have a lot of physical spaces where people congregate. And I think that's, like I said, a strength of the city. It's sort of a flaw of the West Coast is because everything is very much like I drive to my job in the valley and then I go home to the Bay, somewhere else, and that's my commute and that's who I talk to. And I think that there are tons of those kinds of forums that exist in New York City where you can go and pitch for free, to a room of other entrepreneurs, to a panel of venture capitalists, for sort of honest, off-the-cuff feedback as to how successful they think your idea will be and what are some options and guidance and things like that. And I think that would be something that I would say and what I would really encourage people to do.
Awesome. I'm going to open it up to the audience. If there's any questions that you would like to pose to the panel in general or to specific panelists. Any questions?
Okay. It's actually, while you guys are talking, the last two questions brought this to mind. Should I stay? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, stay.
Hi, Rob Williams. I'm a web developer and a game developer, actually based in Harlem, so all of these conversations are important to me because those are two sectors which we need more presence in the African American community in Harlem in particular. So thank you guys for putting this on. But a lot of the question that we were answering previously talked about tools that people need, and just to bring this to everybody's attention, and just to kind of open it up to you guys, because I think that IncubateNYC is seated in a very unique position to provide what I'm about to describe to the Harlem community. A lot of those tools exist, but a lot of people either don't know about them. It's difficult to maintain a connection with just the constant flow of information that's coming out there. And our Harlem Business Alliance is constantly offering a lot of these programs and a lot of these things, but it's very difficult for the average person, maybe if you're internet, maybe if you don't have access to the internet like that, to really be up on a lot of those things. So I think what we need, in addition to tools, are efficient ways to disseminate a lot of this information out to people. And it would be great if maybe in conjunction with Incubate and organizations like Harlem Business Alliance, to come up with a way to simplify those tools, put them in a digital format, or any way that make it easier for a lot of people to get. So I just want to put that out there because they do exist and everyone should be aware of that.
Right.
But there are ways to improve getting that out there to people.
Absolutely.
I think that's a good point. And it's kind of the impetus behind why Brian and I did start IncubateNYC. So back in November, they published this article about all the startup activity here in New York City. And they stated that over 400 startups had been funded. And we were like, well, if 400 have been funded, that there's probably over 1,000 of them that are still working. And when we looked at the map, all of them were below 59th Street. And then there were a couple over in Brooklyn. And we started to know that there were like little clusters of where the startups were. And it was, you know, Flatiron District, and then Soho, and, you know, a little bit over near the Googleplex. But when we dug deeper, we found that it was because there were certain hubs where people were meeting and sharing ideas, and they could get the access to the resources that they wanted. General Assembly is a good example of that. They have, in my mind, revolutionized the whole startup scene within the Union Square, and they focus in on education. They are re-educating the population of New York in a big way by providing people the opportunity to go and learn about coding. And so I think you're right that that is something that's necessary, probably in Harlem as a start, before you can get to, you know, talking about VC and things of that sort.
Can you guys talk a little bit about what you, the initiatives that you've taken in terms of speaking to some of the political community and the business community in Harlem, and what the feedback has been?
It's a good question. So when we've talked to, so some of our partners are very entrenched into the Harlem business community as well as the political community, such as Abyssinian as well as HBA. And the sense has been very, very positive. They're like, hey, you know, there is a need for a change. There is a need for new types of businesses to come to Harlem, and they're very supportive. On the flip side, there has been some question about, you know, I'll just say it, the gentrification. You know, and what impact is that going to have on the community, and just being mindful of that. And I think it's a balance, you know. It's one of those things where I didn't really want to bring it up, but I think it's a conversation in the room that needs to be had. And so I think that having great partners behind us who can help guide that conversation will be helpful, but it's a gray area. It really is, because on one side you see the opportunity, and we talked about it in the video about, you know, you bring a couple businesses here or startups here, and other ones come, and then you have coffee shops like Chris was talking about that you need, and more businesses spawn from that. But at the same time, you have the effect of higher real estate and all that. So I think it's a good question. Does anybody on the panel have any comments around it?
Restate the question again.
I wanted to know, based on their experience and feedback from the political community and business community that are already entrenched in Harlem, the reception and what they feel we need to do, or what they're not doing, or what some of the fears are in actually investing in an incubator here.
Well, I mean, you know, I've been involved for some time at Columbia University with all of this activity. So there's a tremendous amount of support for it, because the idea is, how does it create jobs? And that's what's important. How does it create jobs here in the community? So whether it could be, you know, an ancillary job because we now have people getting hired within a coffee shop, or because an entrepreneur seeks to develop the business here, you know, they're interested in both of those things. But from the political side, it's something where they also need to be educated. So a lot of that happens through Columbia University. I mean, I was the entrepreneur in residence, so what we did back in 2008 was, one, we looked at the kind of resources that a Columbia University had, but they had never been brought together and coalesced, because most of this was downtown-based activity. It was driven by NYU. So one of the things we looked at was, how do we now make that happen at a Columbia University? And it involves a number of things that people have talked about. One, creating a community, creating social means where folks come together. We used to do speed dating between engineers and business school students, because really they never met. And they needed to learn how to figure out how to talk to one another. You know, so it takes a lot of work. And I think some of what we see today is a culmination of activity. Jen is out of the business school at Columbia, and we have Marcus coming here. So it's an interesting point in time. We're at the right place to make these things happen. So we will have to move forward with the idea of creating more tech entrepreneurs, while also creating more social venturers who are looking at how we address some of the inequities through some of these technology principles which can work in other ways. So, you know, you have a supportive polity, but they're not used to creating tech startups. So there has to be this give and take that helps them think through how they use their political power to leverage that. But the driver for that is job creation. How do we create more jobs? And how do we improve STEM education in the schools? So it's all tied together.
If I could kind of jump on that, you know, one of the things about Harlem that I think that the community should also understand is that Harlem should be welcoming to these types of businesses. Harlem wants to keep its spirit, Harlem wants to keep its culture, but at the same time, you know, it seems like sometimes there's apprehension from Harlem to bring in, you know, a boatload of new companies and a boatload of new businesses. If we're to see this through, and Harlem is to take off like other neighborhoods in New York, then Harlem will change a little. And I do think that the spirit, the soul of Harlem can stay. But you know, right here on 125th Street, the Clinton Foundation, they left Harlem because they didn't have what they needed, you know, to keep working here. They moved all the way downtown. I know.
Well, it's not. Wait. They're back. I work for the foundation too.
Oh,
they're here.
Oh,
they're currently
still
on 125th Street.
Oh,
yes.
perfect. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know. It seemed like I was.
I just want to correct that.
Hadn't they moved down to Water Street?
They have two
Yeah,
offices.
there's two offices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just two separate. There's this private office which is down there.
Okay, gotcha.
Here.
Gotcha.
Here.
So the idea though is also that, you know, to make sure that Harlem has what it needs here in the neighborhood for all these companies, and to keep inviting them. I think that's good, and I think everybody wants to come up here to Harlem.
Yeah, can I piggyback on both their comments? I think the key word here.
Say your name, sir.
Sure, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Let me stand up too. My name is Raymond Ortiz. I'm a Harlem resident. I've been a resident. How you doing, guys? For quite a while. Actually, I was born and bred. I think the key word here. Well, that's a lot of light. I think the key word here is balance. There just has to be a balance. Of course, you got to develop, but you just got to have balance. Now, I'm not suggesting we do like what Horowitz is doing out in Silicon Valley. They're giving away half their profits. I don't know if you all have heard about that. Okay, now this is hey, we're not saying we should all do that, but we need to do something in the same spirit. You said what?
Well, no, we can't do that.
No, they're making, no, anybody can, that's a different, it's a personal issue, as they say. If you want to give away half your money, you can give away half your money. But what I'm saying to you is that the same spirit as far as giving back, as you grow, you give. So as you're going up, you pull up. And that's what we have to do. If it's looked at that way, and it's looked at from that balanced perspective, then it wouldn't be a problem. Because at the same time that rents are going up, you're still putting in housing to stabilize people who are not involved. And at the same time, you're getting people involved. So they're not left out. That's the point. So balance is the key. Yep. The other thing I want to say, with all due respect to what the city's doing with the Roosevelt Island project, 10 years, that's way too long. Right? That's like a century in technology. So, I mean, that's something, you know, with all due respect to the man, you know, bottom line is, we have to do something right now. We're moving at the speed of light. So if you're waiting 10 years for something to, you know, we got to incubate, you got to do this, you got to grow it organically. You got to, you understand what I'm saying? Does everybody understand what I'm saying? So, you know, so we can't start 10 years from now. We got to start with the resources that we have now and bring those to bear and then move forward. Otherwise, you know, we'll be on the moon by the time we get started.
But the center in Roosevelt Island is also a driver for a number of things, such as increasing STEM education among students in the schools throughout the city of New York, as well as increasing the ability of teachers to get professional development in STEM education. So just that long-term real estate development project has other effects, you know, in right now that are important.
No, I totally agree.
I want to say something. You made that's a very good remark, because I think that the project of the island is amazing, and the infrastructure, it's going to do the city great.
Right.
And but it's a long-term vision.
Right.
So what do we do now? And what we do have in Harlem, I just read about it. One of the highest concentration of churches here in New York. And why not use those places to create workshops where everybody that, and I'm not talking about, you know, Columbia workshops about, you know, hardcore engineering or stuff like that. I mean, it's not really, you don't really need that much knowledge to start a simple business. So you could have somebody that knows about business plans, just, 30-minute workshop, create a basic business plan. Then, okay, I know something about Photoshop, so I'm gonna create a 30-minute workshop so you can create your own banners and business cards so you don't have to spend money on that. And just create like a weekly routine where people in the community that know very simple things but are necessary, just give back, and for free anybody can participate, because we do need like high-level entrepreneurs that discover the next breakthrough, but we also need like coffee shops, small businesses that are very basic, but you still have to provide them with the sufficient knowledge so that they could start.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we need to find him here more often, because he embodies the balance that I'm talking. If we got him to the bachelor, we'd be good.
One more comment before we end the panel, or question?
I just have a comment, and it's a bit of a shift from what we're talking about. I think if we're going to talk about creating a renaissance, a shift in a mindset in any community, you have to start with the currency of business today, and the currency of business today is data, right? I've got an opinion about Harlem. I've got an opinion about New York, and I've got an opinion about technology. But what I don't have today is a clear understanding of what the environment is in Harlem to do business. And I'm sure entrepreneurs that are looking for a place to set up, and I'm sure investors that are looking for companies with the best probability of turning a profit don't have that data either. How many entrepreneurs are there in Harlem? How many technology entrepreneurs are there in Harlem? How many software engineers reside in Harlem, right? We need to know these things. What's the transactional environment? Just outside of what's happening in technology, what kind of economic activity currently exists within Harlem? And then for me as an entrepreneur, I can look at that and say, how much of that can I transition to digital? I've got a reason to come to Harlem, right? So we all need to contribute. I'm an advisor to the IncubateNYC team, and I believe in the project. But I think we all need to get behind the project and say, what is my area of expertise, and how do I contribute that particular area of expertise to these particular problems? The problem that I have is the data problem. So if there's somebody in this room that can help me solve that problem, I want to hear about it.
Well, wait, you should respond to that because it's the open mic yesterday.
Thank you, Jenna. So, what Jenna's referring to is that about 2 months ago, the city passed legislation, and I know this bit might put everyone to sleep, but I'll try to speed through it. The city passed local legislation that all of the data representing city services and all of our projects and everything we're working on is going to be made public. Everything except personally identifiable information and medical records and things like that is all actually going to live on the city's open data portal within the next 6 years, starting today. Starting the day the legislation was passed, city agencies are working to actually get all of that data sort of out into the public sphere, exactly for this purpose, for the startups and people with a vision on what to do with that data to better challenges that we all communally face, how they can use that to actually back up their business plan, build a solid case, and go on and tackle that challenge. I think it's a little different than what you were getting at sort of specifically, but I think it's good that that's sort of out there.
I think it's a good start, and the idea is there needs to be a central hub.
Well, you should tell them the site too, where to go.
I'm assuming you know, but it's nyc.gov/data. All of our 900 released data sets currently exist on that site, and it's all public. And a lot of hackers and entrepreneurs have risen to the challenge and made use of that data and actually built a number of applications, websites, and entire companies. Revolved around using that data to better life in the city.
So this has been a great discussion. Before we end, I would love to say thank you to our panel for...
I want to say something else.
Okay.
Brian Marcus, one question. Why is it called Incubate NYC and not Incubate Harlem?
It's a good question.
I mean, that's how it should start. You should be proud of yourselves, right?
Because we believe that this should be about getting this community a part of the broader New York tech community. So we don't want to be exclusionary, we want to be inclusionary, because we recognize that it first starts with New York City, right? And we are a neighborhood that's going to add to the broader New York City technology ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so that was the focus, and if you would have focused just on Harlem, then it would have been applicable to everyone. But we believe that technology, especially in communities, is applicable to everyone.
Well, to add one more thing, the technology projects that innovated in Harlem were first done in Harlem and then moved throughout the city of New York. And they were facilitated through Columbia University at the Institute for Learning Technologies. So the first project to bring the internet to schools in the United States was in Harlem. That's called the Harlem Environmental Access Project. Then it grew to include other schools throughout the city, and they gave rise to startups like Mouse, Computers for Youth. I mean, so Harlem has a role in just the initiation of technology in urban communities. So that's another thing that's important as far as your historical convergence around why it makes sense to do that here. But it didn't start in New York first. It started here in Harlem. Then it happened throughout the city, and it informed what was going on in the Clinton administration. So that's important to understand. And then that says there's a role that Columbia has played in this historically. You know, so we also want to take advantage of that university because it's unique in the world, in that it's like the world-class, you know, research institution, and it's committed to this. And they also have a lot of the data that you're alluding to, you know, in terms of how many entrepreneurs are in Harlem, the businesses that are in Harlem, but also having a long-standing commitment to bringing the technology here to Harlem. So I think, you know, we need to keep that in mind. One thing that happens with young people, you guys think you're all trying to do it new today, and you're bringing fresh blood to it, but there's a historical continuum that you're basically now the leading lights of in incubating and innovating. So that's an important idea that I want to throw out there.
Absolutely. So once again, this has been an awesome discussion. I would love to thank our panel for giving us some great thoughts. Before we end, one of the things that Brian and I said when it came to this panel, we didn't want it just to be a panel of ideas and then nothing gets done with it. So we know that there's ideas amongst you all that weren't said, but are extremely relevant to what we're trying to do. And so when you walked in, we gave everyone a card, and if you do not have a card, please get one. We want you to write down one idea, as well as your email address, and share that with us, because we're all about taking these ideas and putting them into action. And so at the end, we're going to select one, and that person gets a free happy hour that we're going to sponsor. All right? So,
happy hour of one?
with 5 of your friends. And so with that said, we want to thank you, and this has been fantastic.
Sorry, one more thing. How you doing? Like that. So, if you don't have a card, come find me. I'll have the stack of cards in my hand. So that's 1. 2, we're about to go downstairs and just grab some drinks because we have booze. Because you have to drink and think. I mean, that's my motto. If you don't get a chance to write down one of your ideas, or if you have to leave, or if you think of anything over the rest of the week, hashtag the idea, hashtag Why Harlem, so that we can record them digitally as well. And definitely drop off the cards because everybody loves a happy hour, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, thanks a lot. We really appreciate you coming out.